Hey, what's happening?
Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here.
Yeah, we've got a really cool full story moment happening today on the podcast, and a really cool topic that I'm excited to dive into.
I'm really excited about our guest. He's like, as the snow is outside on our floor, you can see his LA vibe completely and how warm and tropical it is. So I'm really excited about today too.
So we've got Nick Lynch on the podcast today. He came to us this really unique way, and I want to share a little bit of that story, and he's going to fill in a lot of the gaps of that too. But if you remember, so in our last season, we had the chance to sit down with Make-A-Wish. And, it's one of our favorite charities, one of Julie's absolute favorite charities. And just getting to hear the stories of the different kids that go through the program, they call them wish kids, right? They get to have a wish and get to go through that experience. Well, all these years ago, Nick was one of those wish kids. And I think that gave a lot of passion and purpose to his story and put him on this trajectory. He's now this brilliant mind that is serving this space. He's a cancer survivor. And he has created an innovative way to connect influencers online. And so who are you thinking of in your head? Is it Taylor Swift, or is it somebody like that? Or even just Instagram influencers? And he's connecting them with charities and with causes to make these really powerful partnerships. So I know, all the years we were serving a nonprofit, we weren't even there mentally. So I love the idea that he's really pushing the envelope and uniting forces for good. We are so all about this. So Nick, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Well, would you mind just kind of walking us through your story,
Sure.
of going through Make-A-Wish, but then ultimately leading up to kaleidoscope.io starting?
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal background is, so when I was 3, I was diagnosed with a stage 3 Wilms tumor. So not a stage 4, but a stage 3. Wilms tumor is a common, very common tumor in typically younger kids in their kidney. That's where it starts. And so by the time they had found it, it had gone into the main artery in my heart, the superior vena cava, and sort of down my leg. It was this big, crazy, again, stage 3 tumor. And so through that sort of crazy time in my life and my family's time, this was, I think, 87. And, the idea of Make-A-Wish which is just starting to get sort of popular. They started in 84 in Arizona with an amazing story about a child with terminal cancer who eventually wanted to go be a police officer. So they did this really cool stuff. But in 87, it was just sort of being around, and my family had kind of heard about it. So a member of our community had suggested to have me be a part of it, and my wish was granted. And so my wish was to go to Disneyland. And so it is literally the really only memory I have of being sick. I don't remember about being in the hospital. I don't remember all the treatments or the subsequent, radiation or chemo. I really only remember going on a plane, getting picked up by a limo, going to Disneyland. I mean, I'm, 3.5 years old, and those are the memories I, really remember and cherish most. And so because of that, I know the power of a wish, and I know the power of mission-driven organizations. Like, I've been a recipient of it, and felt it, and I know it. And more importantly, as a kid, you don't really know what's happening, but I see it. It sort of trickles down to your family. It sort of normalizes everything. You need like a big grand gesture, or big grand experience to sort of normalize everything that you're going through. You're so far to one side of going through treatments and being sick that you sort of need a big thing to go kind of get back on track. And that's what it did. And that's what it did for me. And that's what it's done for my family. And I've been connected to the mission and the Make-A-Wish family really ever since. Even in my professional career now here in LA, I've been part of the Make-A-Wish organization in LA for about 7 or 8 years, helping them do various amounts of things.
What an incredible story.
Amazing.
And I mean,
Yep.
It's funny when you were talking about that, I was thinking when you said you got that at 3, it's like, I don't even know that I have memories from when I was 3, but to underscore the importance of Make-A-Wish as a foundation and how that could be a launching pad to completely shift the trajectory of your life because of this one experience that had such a profound and indelible impact on you. And now that you're pouring that into these socially good organizations and making these connections, I just really have to think that people who are in the nonprofit space that are tuning in and listening right now, I mean, I feel them, if you're at least intuitive and smart, you're leaning in right now to hear, how is Nick creating this bridge between individuals and these causes that are so important. So talk to us a little bit about Kaleidoscope and tell us how you came up with that dream and what's going on and how people can be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's sort of like my personal background, and that's always kind of driven me personally. But from a professional standpoint, for really the last almost 14 years, I've really been focused in advertising technology, which is sort of a geeky term for I help brands find their audience on digital media, right? That's sort of what, and I help build technology to do that. Fast forward now, really till March. I was in Singapore right before all of this crazy COVID stuff happened. And I was talking to a colleague of mine who was really connected to the government and really focused in environmental, focused causes, really philanthropic. And he pretty much said, like, things are going to get pretty bad for everybody, but specifically for the nonprofit organizations who really are built for these in-person events. Like all of their fundraising is there. That's really where their focus is in terms of like how they build their community and engage it. And he pretty much was like, you have all this background in technology and working with influencers and data, like what can you do? And I sort of took that as a challenge. And I literally on the plane, I had built sort of what the idea of Kaleidoscope was. And so by the time I landed,
oh my gosh,
I had what Kaleidoscope is now. And so, essentially what Kaleidoscope is a technology that enables nonprofits, corporate social responsibility teams, and influencers to better collaborate. So we have built some technology that sort of helps match all those people. Think of it like Tinder for nonprofits and influencers.
A much tender, more tender.
Yeah.
And I love that you're doing this on the flight from Singapore home, right? Which is like one of the longest flights ever, though.
This is the second guest we've had on the show that has had a brilliant idea on a flight home. The birthday party project was also
airplane napkin.
Yes,
right?
Airplane napkin. There's something to this science, I think.
I love it.
It is. Well, there's nothing else to do up there, and so that, the technology. The technology helps do that. It really powers those collaborations on social media. We provide analytics around, what nonprofits are doing on social media, really collecting all of it together and making sense of it. And then most importantly, which was sort of baffling to me as I got more and more entrenched in the operations of nonprofits, is we provide measurement of all of that, right? What collaborations, which partnerships, which tactics are really driving your goals, whether that's just driving awareness or whether that's actually driving donor increases or fundraising. We really provide granular insights there. And so that's the hope and goal, is like to create this technology that's very easy, intuitive to connect with social media influencers, power your social media, efforts, and then create some sort of measurement tools around all of that.
I love that you went there, because you're on the cutting edge. And I think your secret sauce is that you were kind of outside of the nonprofit space. You see all these big companies are leveraging this idea. And on the inside of nonprofits, it's like they're trying to struggle to figure out their development plans. I love that you're bringing this insight and technology and just relevance to today's marketing world to people today. Because I think it's blowing my brain thinking about it, of just like how powerful of a tool this could be for folks. So what are some of the trends you're seeing that nonprofit professionals need to be paying attention to, that, it's kind of like a blind spot to us?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I think drove a lot of this, and where I saw the biggest opportunity, was sort of the needing, and COVID kicked everybody in the teeth. And so everybody's really trying to figure this out. But the shift of how you think about building community, because at the end of the day, like obviously nonprofits are mission driven and they serve amazing people and do amazing things, but it's really about building community, right? And so for the most part, the legacy thinking is how do we build community in person? How do we build community via mailers? How do we build community and engage with our community in email? And so now there's this huge shift of, okay, there's a whole brand new medium that we really haven't focused on as a community building tool, which at the end of the day drives your ROI. The more engaged, the bigger your community is, the more engaged your community is, the more awareness, engagement, and funds you get, right? That's sort of like the 1, 2, 3 of it. So now, nonprofits are really trying to figure out, how do we use this medium that everybody is on? My dad, who's, 65, to
my grandma, who's 93, literally.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have the full spectrum of people who are, she is an influencer, right? So That's really what is there. Is there's everybody's there. There's everybody's engaging, looking at content, and literally looking for things to do. And so I feel like it's been an overlooked medium for creating community, building community, engaging community, and really using it as a storytelling medium. And so now the big trends are not necessarily how do we get more digital, but how do we build a digital community? How do we create and engage people digitally? Tell the stories about who we're serving. Tell the story about who's doing the serving, right? And doing all of those sorts of pieces to really figure out how to drive the mission forward in an era now where we can't be in person, but we don't necessarily need to be either for a lot of the things too. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of happening.
Nick, we were made to be friends, right?
I just feel like he just unpacked 3 of our core values that we believe as a company right here. 1, the secret sauce of community is everything. And I find this conversation so fascinating, especially that you were in, advertising in a technical and a digital space, because I feel like COVID has thrown all rule books out the window in terms of how we do business. And we have all figured out very quickly how to adapt, in a virtual sense. And so, I have a public relations background, and it's like, there's no way that you could send out a press release and get that published in a newspaper and get as many eyeballs on something.
Printed and
yes, as I fax it to him. I really did fax press releases early in my career.
But you got mail.
I exactly. There's AOL, like the little dial-up. But I really think that doesn't lend itself to be as authentic, to be as empathetic, to be as heartfelt. I mean, that is a very news-driven way to connect with not even your target audience. It's just you're talking to everybody. And so I really think that you are onto something so huge here. And I wonder what you would advise or how you would counsel someone who's listening today, who's in a nonprofit, who says, I really don't think we have a huge digital presence with our nonprofit, and I'm not really sure who our people are. Where would I start? What would you say to a nonprofit like that?
Yeah. The first thing I tell everybody, and so I've since March, I think, talked to over 300 nonprofits just to sort of hear what they're doing. What are your pain points? Sort of like I started this thing called the 5 and 3 leadership series, where I literally just ask 5 questions and turn it to a 3-minute article. And part of all of those conversations led to this. But what I really
you're going to tell us all 5 of those. We're ready for them.
And I want you to break down that formula. I think we need that.
Yeah, our listeners need it.
But the big thing that I hear is that either we don't have digital expertise, or our team is small, or which platform do I start on? Because there's just so much. It's so new for so many organizations. There's so many different places that you can reach and talk to people. And the first thing I really ask is, what is the story you want to tell? Right? Like what is the story? Where maybe you've been telling the same story for 100 years. Or maybe you just started, but let's really think about the story you want to tell and the best way to tell it. And then from there, we can start building these small building blocks to figuring out, okay, this is exactly the strategy we should use. These are the platforms or really platform you should focus on, and build a community there first. And once you do these small steps, then it's much more digestible, it's more tangible, and your expectations are set. Because what's happening right now, you're seeing the 1% of nonprofits do things really well on, maybe less than that. There's like a handful of nonprofits who do social media really well. And the 2 questions I hear a lot is, oh, well, how do I get as much money as they do? Or how the heck are they doing it? They're brand new, but they have 100,000 followers. And those are the 2 things I typically hear. Social media is free. Like, you don't have to pay to post something online. You don't, right? It's just time and sort of thinking through the process. So money isn't necessarily an issue. And when people are looking at new accounts who are getting just rapid growth, virality, whatever the case may be, it's because they no longer have these legacy processes or legacy thinking about how they build and communicate to their community. And that's the winning formula, is communicating to your community, not from your legacy of, okay, well, we have to build a 1 sheet, and then we're going to communicate what the 3 points on the 1 sheet are, and then we're going to mail that one, right? Like
and then post that 1 sheet on Facebook. It's like,
right.
Don't do
Totally,
that.
Right? Exactly. So look, and I'm not knocking anybody who does it, because honestly, those work for certain constituents and certain donors. It does, but it requires now a new way of thinking about your community and communicating to your community, that we got to build that muscle, right? It's almost like physical therapy. We have to build the muscle, and then we have to grow it, right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, lots to unpack.
We just need everybody to just rewind 2 minutes, hear what Nick just said over and over, and commit that to memory, because this is a growth mindset hack right here, I think, for
Absolutely,
social
growth
media.
mindset.
And the way that you are meeting your audience in the space that works for them. I mean, if you're working on a teen, a teen homeless shelter or something like that, it's like, we should not be direct mailing people. You may have to get into TikTok or something. We got to meet these people where they are. And it's less about, well, I'm uncomfortable with that as the person who's managing the social media. It's more about the strategy of the mission and the message, and how are we going to connect with people who are intrinsically going to want to hear and want to lean into this. So I think this is really a great masterclass in like starting to revamp who you are and having your digital presence.
And I think like you're so sorry, Nick, you're just so strong in your values of like, the goal is to create community. So why do we put up these walls of places where community is happening and community people already want to be? It's like, that's where you need to go create, your niche of community there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up a really good example of meeting the community where they are. I talked to two nonprofits recently that I love what they're doing, but how they think about communicating to community needs to change. I met a woman in South Africa who helps men and women essentially take the upcycled sort of materials that they're doing. So, for example, they take like old billboard posters of movies and those sorts of things, and make the most amazing like makeup bags.
Oh my
Or
gosh, I love
or
that.
she showed me this. She showed me this one. Yeah, the makeup bags are actually really, really cool. I was like, wow, this is amazing, and it's upcycled, and it does a lot of really cool things on a bunch of different levels. But she showed me this amazing like Black Panther mask that was built out of upcycled, and it's amazing. But she told me these stories about how they're doing it and where these people are from, and I asked them, well, how are you sharing this content? Because these stories are amazing, and the end product is absolutely unbelievable. It's not like something that somebody really quickly put together. Like, this is high quality stuff that these men and women are building out of these upcycled materials. And she said, we're not. That's a perfect example of like, that's an amazing story to tell, and you could build an amazing community around how people are building that, either on TikTok or Instagram, right? One, not all of them all at the same time, but one,
Right.
really focus on building community there, right? And another thing, I spoke with an executive director who leads a woman empowerment program and accelerator globally. Same story. These women all over the world have these most amazing ideas, and this organization helps power those. But how are you communicating and sharing these stories, right? Like, what are you doing to really kind of pull out the background of these women and their struggle and how they've overcome it and what they're doing to build new things, right? So there's so many opportunities to share stories and build community. It's just a matter of kind of focusing that and building it on one channel and growing community that way.
And to me, that is how a nonprofit has $100,000 or 100,000 followers, is if you can story tell incredibly well. Imagine if you told the story of one of those women and it connected on a way that just that story was shared and shared and shared, and then BuzzFeed picks it up. I mean, this is how things become viral and how people become influencers. So I want to squat a little bit in that space and have you talk about the influencer, because I think this concept of creating value-driven partnerships between the influencer and the corporation to a nonprofit, whatever it is. I think that some of our listeners may not be aware of what an influencer is and how their network and social media following can be leveraged. So can you dive into that a little bit and explain it to our community?
Sure, for sure. And I love the T Swift example at the top of this. But I think typically when you hear social media influencer, like Kim Kardashian comes up, right? Like those in the Kardashian Jenners, like those are sort of the ultimate sort of social media influencers.
Your neighbors in LA, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they go by in their
down the
Hummer.
street in Calabasas. Great.
Down the street. Exactly. but anybody can be in it. Anybody has influence. Anybody has a sphere. Your 93-year-old grandma has a sphere of influence, right? So there are varying levels and tiers and degrees of influence, right? You have the celebrities and megastars with the millions and millions of fans and followers on social media, but you also have sort of what they call like the micro influencers who have a couple hundred or 1,000 influence followers on social media, right? And so each one has sort of a sphere of influence. They all have a voice that is followed, and they all have an opinion, and they, sort of a blanket statement, they all want to use their platform to give. Part of being an influencer is sort of having a pulse on the culture and pushing it forward, whatever your viewpoint is. And that's what the greatest thing about social media is. It's given everybody an opportunity to have a voice and a platform. Sort of generally and democratized all of it, right? So, that's what we're talking about when we talk about influencers, is people who have, a social media following on one platform, on multiple platforms, and our work is really how do we aggregate all of those together and identify where the synergies are between, influencers on social media and corporate social partners and nonprofits.
I love that.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I mean, I was just going to ask you for some examples of where you've seen this work really well. Just nonprofits and influencers that kind of got together.
I have two good ones. One is one personally, because when I landed when I landed from Singapore, we wanted to test this out, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other one is one from an influencer who is a big partner of ours. One of them. So I'll start with the latter first. So there was an amazing collaboration between Jimmy Kimmel, Feeding America, and Lay's potato chips, and then a video game influencer by the name of Ronnie 2K, who sort of is the influencer for all things NBA 2K video game basketball related. So essentially, they played basketball, they played online, they played NBA 2K, they filmed it. So you see them, you hear their voices. It was pretty much underwritten and sponsored by Lay's, and they raised $250,000 for Feeding America, right? And it was the most amazing piece of content, because it wasn't like them saying like donate now. It was like they were just playing, they were hanging out, playing,
doing their thing.
Only in the year 2020, you get Jimmy Kimmel shooting baskets online, raising
with
money.
an NBA gamer
paid for by Lay's.
The brand loves it because they're getting great engagement, and obviously they're in line with an amazing cause. The cause loves it because they obviously raise money, but also they're building that community. They're engaging with the people where they are, which is again our collective now core tenet, right? And so it was an amazing piece of content socially that just went all over the place, which was great. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. The second one. The second one is it's interesting. So when we began testing out Kaleidoscope, we actually sort of put together sort of this hodgepodge of amazing people in LA and Singapore and built something called We the Good. And so We the Good was a collection of a couple social media people in Singapore, some marketers, and we essentially selected 14 nonprofits across 3 pillars: mental well-being, individuals and families at risk, and migrant workers. The migrant worker issue in Singapore is really bad, given COVID. And so we selected 14 nonprofits. We built some creative content around storytelling for each one. And we just deployed social media content across our own channels, the We the Good Instagram channel, and also connected with Singapore influencers to share that content and the causes. And since April, we raised about $100,000 for all 14 of those. Not 100,000 each, but collectively $100,000 across those 14 nonprofits. And so we proved the model, we saw engagement, and we measured it. And so that's really where we just see the huge power of what we're trying to do.
Okay.
I love I want to contextualize, okay, because
then I'm going to come back and make him emote. As you know,
there's going to be some old fogies or fogies, whatever the word is, listening to this and saying, okay, that's $100,000, but it is in COVID year. We're not talking about, at the end game of this is not money. The end game of this is community, and the money is this awesome byproduct that you also made money and raised money for your cause. But it's about humanizing yourself. It's about creating community. It's about unlocking awareness. Like there's so much more to this. So you can't miss the point and hone in on the money factor. Just want to say that.
That was such a solid point. I'm glad I did not interrupt you as I normally do so rudely, because that was a really great point. And the thing that I just wanted to ask, because I just think this is such a beautiful full circle moment for Nick's story, is like that it just appears that your passion to want to do good has always been there. And I mean, even the name We the Good, that sounds like the poor man's grammar of We Are for Good. So
it's the caveman.
Yeah, right.
That came out way before we were around, like We the Good.
We the Good. But I want to ask you, like, from that point, I mean, we're not even a year from the moment you took that flight home, and you have already taken this idea, this just really epiphany and this beautiful idea, and it's translated again to hundreds of thousands of dollars raised. But the community that it's grown, the stories that have been shared, how does that make you feel that you have been able to kind of you're on the, what I would call the early point of this snowball, which I can only see is growing?
I hope that's what it is. And for me, it feels super validating that this is sort of a culmination of everything I've ever done, whether it's been a Make-A-Wish recipient, whether it's helped serve Make-A-Wish and be a wish granter, or my professional career, right? It sort of feels like this, it's a culmination of all of that. And even though it's ones and zeros in technology, like it's literally me, uh, you know, like, so it's, I'm super excited and humbled by the response that we've gotten so far, and the feedback that we've received. And, every single person within reason, almost every single person I've talked to is pretty much saying like this, we all need this, we need help, and we need this. And that's really why we're doing it. And I've, tried to build as many, what I call them, bridge resources, but really resources as possible that are free, and that can really help bridge that gap between, I don't know what I'm doing, we have legacy stuff, where do I start, to getting into the technology and actually utilizing it.
So here's the sweet spot in the conversation for all our listeners, is that Nick has incredible resources. So talk to us a little bit about these resources that are on your website for influencer marketing, for social media, for TikTok playbooks. I mean, you also have a social media calendar. So how can our listeners leverage these resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So in talking to all of these nonprofits, a lot of themes kept popping up, and I assumed nothing. I just wanted to be a sponge. And so, what from those calls, what I learned is that people just need some level of like, where do I start? And so that's really what the aim of all of these resources were. So we spent a lot of time really kind of building guidebooks and playbooks, which essentially is just a step-by-step of how you start and build a strategy. And so we built social media playbooks for YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram sort of collectively, because those are sort of our favorite places to start. And it's literally like, it goes from how do I start an account all the way to thinking about a strategy, to thinking about what kind of content to use and sort of the reporting around that. And we've applied that same sort of methodology with TikTok, which is a new platform. It's exciting, it's flashy. I don't say everybody get into it, but it's something to think about.
Thank you, because I'm scared of it. But I will go there if the community needs it. Again,
if you're an executive director that dances, though, I would encourage you to go to TikTok, right?
Yes.
For sure. And even down to the social media calendar, which is, a lot of the time I hear like, how do we even manage this? So, really just being able to have sort of a very concise document that everybody can look at and, ideate, brainstorm, and solidify what you want to do on each platform. Those are the tools that I felt, based on the feedback, were just important just to get a baseline, right? Like, people just want a place to start.
Yeah.
And so that's really what I wanted to do, is like, this is the place to start. Take a look at it, and then let's have a conversation once you've started to ingest it a little bit and have questions of your own, and really build that value-driven relationship. So that what I also found in a lot of the research is that most technology companies in this space immediately have their hand out, like, sign up and spend $300, $400, $500, $600 a month on the technology that you may or may not need because you don't know how to use it, right? And so my whole goal in all of this is trying to practice what I preach. If we can help you reach the community where you are, I want to reach the nonprofit community where they are, and really figure out how do we build a baseline of competency and understanding, so then we can create value on top of that.
So smart.
Nick, so smart. And I'm feeling this sense of gratitude because to have someone with this brain power and to have this brilliant idea, you could have gone to for profit. You could have gone to, the Apples of the world and figured out how to connect them to influencers. You could have gone to, we're talking about Lay's potato chips, but it's like, and I want to love on our community for a second here. What you are doing and the people that you are benefiting in the spaces that you are, whoever your target audience is, Nick is living proof that your mission matters and that you can leave a
100%.
lifelong indelible impact on someone that is for good. And so you might be feeling a little down, we're in a pandemic, we're starting a new year. And I want to provide some hope for people because I just think the things that we are doing right now to move into spaces for people that need us, this could be the long game. This could be the byproduct. And I just really want to thank you for leaning into social causes and missions that help other people with this, because I really think that this is just such a brilliant idea.
Yeah. And
missions matter. Missions matter, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we talk a lot about abundance and the fundraising capacity of that. You don't need to stop because your people are out there if you can get in front of the right people. There's not a lacking amount of money to be had. And I think the same is true here. If you don't even have an online presence, there's an opportunity. There is your tribe out there. There is a community to be built. There are people that want to be your advocates, be your friends online and help tell your story. I think your story here is evidence of that. You just have to start showing up and working through it and being transparent on these platforms. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah, transparency is key here. One thing that blows my mind in all of this is just in the U.S. there's over 1 million nonprofits. They generate over $2 trillion a year in economic activity, but only 13% of them use any type of technology to further their mission. So like there's a huge opportunity.
Repeat it.
Okay.
Repeat it. I don't want anybody to miss that. Say it again.
Yeah. Right. And it's ingrained in my head because it blows my mind. 1 million nonprofits, just in the U.S. 1 million nonprofits in the U.S. They generate over $2 trillion a year in economic activity, but only 13% of them use technology to further their mission. 13%.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you've ever wanted to open a window of opportunity, people, this is the window.
Social entrepreneurs, come ye to serve the space.
We need you. Clearly, we need you. We need to, I've used this joke before and no one gets it because I am a Gen Xer. We need to find these social entrepreneurs as gremlins. We need to feed them after midnight and we need to watch them replicate across the world because our social causes just need them.
But we also need to step into the game. If you're not leveraging,
don't wait for somebody to come to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Nick, we like to ask each of our guests about a moment in philanthropy that changed your heart. And I feel like we almost did this on the onset, but I don't want to assume that your wish story is maybe a moment of philanthropy that has touched you. And is there another one, that you would like to share with our community today? Important story.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it goes hand in hand. So, I think 5 years ago, I actually became like an official wish granter at Make-A-Wish. So that by far it felt for me like the most amazing thing to be able to do a wish reveal and talk to a young man who was going through leukemia, sort of the last part of it. And when I had met him, he was, had gone through chemo, he had no hair. And so there was a lot of I don't think I ever told him or his family that I was a Make-A-Wish recipient because it's not about me. And when you're going to do a wish reveal grant, but inside I felt like I just totally know what you're going through, and I just felt it. And going through that process of kind of pulling out what his wish was, and going through the months of with Make-A-Wish to try to figure it out, and then to do the wish reveal. And his wish was to go to Hawaii, he and his family to go to Hawaii. And so, I got to, buy the hula skirts and the leis, and I got to design the wish reveal party for him. And it was a big surprise for his family. And when I saw him, he had a full head of hair and he looked so healthy and he was ready to go. And it just, to me, I was like, this is it. This is why we do this. And this is the power of the wish. And so for me, that was the most amazing thing to decide to kind of go full circle and to make it happen.
Oh, that's what it's all
I'm
about.
a wish granter
Go to
too,
wish.org.
Nick.
I was just thinking your
these
stories are combined.
Yeah.
Julie, and your wish that you helped a kid grant was very similar because it was Australia, wasn't it?
Yes, we surprised him at his
Nice.
school assembly, kind of similar.
Oh, awesome.
And dressed up, and every story is so great and every kid is so different. But
And Julie did that on her free time when she was a college student. That's how awesome she is as a human being.
It's the best. Everyone be a volunteer. It's so much.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Nick, my favorite question is getting in your head of your mindsets and the things you do that you think we could serve our community with. We call it one good thing, just a piece of advice, good habit, or something that you could encourage us to impart today.
Well, I guess maybe it's two. One is that just generally, it doesn't cost money to do anything to help other than to share a story. You don't have to donate to help a nonprofit, right? Share a story, tag somebody, do whatever, right? Like you can do so many things that don't cost one penny to help a nonprofit. I think that is super important to reiterate. Like you do not have to donate. You don't have to feel pressure to donate. Just share a story, right? I think that's the biggest one. And I think for the nonprofit people is take a deep breath. I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. I know we're trying to figure out this digital stuff. I promise you, it's not as complicated as it looks. It just takes some time and some focus, and we'll all figure it out.
And if you subscribe to the long game and you know that it's going to take, one small step for man to get you to the one giant leap for mankind, we're just looking for you to take one little step in that direction. And I just think this has been such a hearty conversation. I just feel so invigorated by it. And we're not missing out on the fact that both John and Nick have the Influencer Black Founder t-shirt on right now, and they're dressed exactly the same.
California, this is my favorite.
I feel like this is all the great creative types. And I really want to give a shout out because I don't know that we've said this, but Kaleidoscope is not with a K.
I was about to say
this is brilliant.
I was like, please spell this right.
I mean, this is like colliding. You're bringing the influencer and the mission together. It is Kaleidoscope. And I think it is a brilliant name for the movement and the community and the what we call impact uprising. It's a kindness revolution that's about to come into play here. And I love that you're tapping into it and empowering others, because millennials are in this space. Gen Zers are in this space. And again, look at my grandmother. I mean, she's 93. She is in this space. If you are not here, take a small step. Everybody can do one good thing. And if you're not in the nonprofit space, share your story on your platforms. Just tell your people why you love something. I really think it would lead to an enriching relationship for you, and it might empower somebody to think, oh, I align with that. Maybe I need to check out that nonprofit too. Sharing is caring, right?
Totally. So Nick, tell us how to connect with Kaleidoscope with a C.io.
Yes. Yeah. So kaleidoscope.io, it's like you just said, Collide, COLLIDE, scope, SCOPE.io. That's the best place to find us and connect with us. Please, reach out, shoot me an email. I'm Nick at kaleidoscope.io. I want to hear your story. I want to share it. And I want to figure out how we can help you.
People, when they give their personal email, they're not messing around. So please take me up on that offer and have him fall in love with your mission. I think it could create just waves of ripples. So I just think there's great potential here. It'll be fun to circle back with you in a couple of years or even a couple of months, Nick, and see where this is taken off. You're doing a great thing. We're here for it.
A couple of years, like millennia in digital times.
It really is.
What platforms will we be using then?
Yes.
I'll be all gray by then.
Well, we appreciate you, Nick. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much.